Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the structural realities of the global AI and semiconductor landscape as it stands in July 2026. Look, this isn't just about microchips and code anymore. This is literally the foundation of global power, modern supply chains, and the entire future of geopolitics. By the end of this, you're going to have a crystal clear understanding of who's building what and exactly how nations are positioning themselves on this incredibly high-stakes technological chessboard. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll map out the main tech rift. Second, we'll dive into East Asian strategic hardware. Third, we'll look at Saudi Arabia's massive swing play. And finally, we'll wrap up with the new multipolar reality. Let's get into it. Section 1. The main tech rift. We're looking at the massive bifurcation between the US and China. When you look at this comparison, the structural split defining our modern tech world becomes super obvious. On one side, you have the US network. This system absolutely thrives on rapid innovation, the massive CUDA software ecosystem, attracting top-tier global talent, and an open, or at least kinda open-ish, competitive landscape. But then, completely contrast that with the China fortress. They are driven by sovereign hardware, deep vertical integration, and using their sheer massive scale to build walled-off national resilience. These aren't just different business strategies, right? They are entirely different philosophies on how technology should actually be governed. And when we look at the heavy hitters driving these two philosophies, the division is even starker. The US network is dominated by titans. We're talking NVIDIA, the Microsoft and OpenAI partnership, Google, Oracle. On the flip side, the China fortress is leaning hard on sovereign champions like Huawei with their Ascend chips and Alibaba's Zhenwu. Because we're dealing with fundamentally incompatible chips, models, and data governance policies driven by these specific giants, most other nations are stuck in a really tough spot. They basically have to pick a side or try to carefully and often precariously balance between two completely distinct tech stacks. Moving right along to Section 2, East Asian strategic hardware, specifically looking at the roles of Japan and South Korea. This breakdown does a brilliant job of illustrating how these two middle powers are playing the game. South Korea is going all in on their incredibly ambitious AI top 3 strategy, heavily leveraging their undisputed superpower in memory chips. Think giants like Samsung and SK Hynix, which are absolutely essential to the global supply chain, backed by a very robust national AI and data strategy. Meanwhile, Japan is taking a slightly different route. They are prioritizing autonomy and trustworthiness by leaning into what they've always done best: high-end robotics, advanced manufacturing, and deep research. And for governance, Japan strongly favors light-touch regulation and staying strictly aligned with G7 standards. So what's the absolute key takeaway here? It's that despite their massive technological muscle, neither Japan nor South Korea is trying to build an independent third pole to rival the US or China. No, instead, they act as vital, US-aligned middle powers. Think of them as enhancers. They strengthen and supply the Western tech stack while pragmatically keeping necessary economic ties with China open. They are indispensable for sure, but their orbit is firmly locked into the US network. All right, Section 3, Saudi Arabia's swing play. We're talking about the fastest rising middle power on the board right now. Just look at this number, 500 plus megawatts. Through its sovereign wealth fund and entities like Humane, Riyadh is funding colossal physical AI infrastructure buildouts. We are talking about mind-blowing projects like the NEOM data centers, aiming for a staggering 500 plus megawatts of sheer compute power in direct collaboration with XAI. They are literally building the physical bedrock of AI at a scale we've rarely seen before. And the cash backing it up? Over $3 billion. That is capital B, billion. To achieve this sovereign-scale compute, they've deployed over $3 billion specifically into XAI, rolling out Grok as a national AI layer. On top of that, they're aggressively hammering out deep partnerships with premier US hardware companies like NVIDIA. You can see the pure logic of their Vision 2030 strategy mapped out perfectly in these 3 steps. Step 1, shift reliance completely away from oil. Step 2, build massive, sovereign-scale compute by securing top-tier US frontier technologies. Notice they are choosing US tech, not Chinese. And Step 3, transform into the premier regional hub for AI, energy, and computing. It's fascinating because they're acting as a strategic bridge. They're using their massive capital to buy into the very top tier of the US network while simultaneously doing everything they can to maintain geopolitical neutrality. It makes them way more aggressive in physical infrastructure build-outs than Japan or Korea. They are operating as a true swing player. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, the multipolar reality and how these nations are balancing their leverage. So what exactly do we mean by a swing player? This definition really nails it. It's a nation leveraging its economic or strategic resources to buy access to frontier tech, maintaining neutrality to maximize their geopolitical leverage. But the absolutely crucial phrase here is without building a standalone, entirely independent tech stack. Countries like Saudi Arabia are not out there trying to create a full third pole to compete directly with Washington or Beijing. Instead, they're finding ways to thrive in that vast, complex gray area between the US and China. And Riyadh definitely isn't alone here. Take a look at this list of key middle powers playing this exact same game of balance to maximize their own leverage. You've got India, the United Arab Emirates, Singapore, and the European Union. They are all strategic balancers. They see the reality of the primary tech rift perfectly clearly, and they are using whatever leverage they have, economic, geographical, regulatory, to make sure they aren't left behind, securing the best possible deals from the dominant players. So, to pull this all together, the global scale of technology, the foundational supply chains, and the underlying standards are undeniably dictated by a bipolar rift. It's the US network versus the China fortress. However, as we've seen, this bipolar system is packed with multipolar elements. Middle powers are actively using their leverage to survive and thrive within this structure. But at least as of right now, literally no one is successfully creating a full, independent third stack on the level of the US or China. It's an incredibly dynamic, ever-shifting landscape. Which leaves us with a massive, provocative question to consider as this whole dynamic continues to evolve. In a relentlessly accelerating tech race, how long can these middle powers actually maintain this delicate balance before they're forced to fully commit to either the network or the fortress? Is the luxury of being a swing player going to eventually disappear entirely as the stakes get higher? It is arguably the most important question for the future of global tech, and definitely one we should all be keeping a very close eye on. Thanks for joining me for this explanation, and keep questioning the data.